What's up guys, Romsicle here, back with another review, the show where we find out whether or not you should buy some equipment to increase your video production quality. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the Neewer stabilizer gimbal from Amazon. And links are going to be in the description down below if you're interested. So first off, here we have the black and blue carbon fiber edition. But there are a whole bunch of different flavors to choose from, such as black and red with carbon fiber, and black and blue without carbon fiber. The carbon fiber edition does come at a higher cost than the non-carbon fiber editions, but it's up to you if you want to get it. More on that later. So why should you buy a stabilizer gimbal like this one for your DSLR? Well, the truth is that no matter how careful you are with your hands, how steady your hands are with camera work, for video work, there's always going to be inevitable shaking just due to the fact of how our bodies work. However, with this gimbal stabilizer right here, you can reduce those shaky moments to almost zero and have the smoothest of shots that you could never get with just using your bare hands. Let's get right into the physical properties. On the top, we have the head of the gimbal and the mount. The head mount is completely made out of durable metal, has 2 rubber strips for traction, and 2 screws. The small screw is to mount your camera body, and the large screw is to mount tripod heads. There's also a safety metal pin that stops the mount from sliding off in either direction, which is a great feature. It also has measurements on one side for you to be precise when you place it onto the head with the arrow label, and you tighten it with a spring-loaded screw with a nicely treaded knob for easy twisting. And on the front side of the head, you also have another knob that allows you to shift the head from left to right. Moving down, we have the metal shaft in carbon fiber. And as you can see, it's not real carbon fiber, but a pattern painted to be like one, which is why the carbon fiber edition is not worth the extra money. Also down here is our bearing, which is similar to those in fidget spinners, and it's connected to the all-metal handle on a flexible joint. The only thing not metal here is the handle cover. It's made of a rubbery plastic and has an okay grip tread on it. The metal handle itself is hollow, so there's less weight. Moving all the way to the bottom, we have another knob. This allows you to increase the gimbal's length to twice the length, and you can also change the way the weights are positioned. So if you want it to be horizontal or vertical, you can just loosen the knob and get that done. And lastly, we have the weight system. You have a total of 6 weights with screws and a bolt. All this is mounted onto the plate on the bottom with several openings, most notably the long openings on each side. On the bottom, we also have 4 rubber feet, so you can place this down on a table and use it as a nice short tripod if you need it. The more weights you use, the more stabilization you're going to get due to the downforce of the weights. However, if you're going to use all of the weights, you're only going to be able to shoot for shorter periods of time due to the fact of how heavy the gimbal stabilization is going to be due to all these weights. So you're going to have to find a balance for yourself of how much stabilization you're going to get and how much weight you want. So if you want a lighter workflow and you want to shoot for longer periods, having one weight on each side is going to work, but you'll just have to be more careful when handling the gimbal to get those perfect shots. So it really depends on your work style. Balancing this gimbal is the most important part of the gimbal, and you want to make sure this is perfect so that when you're shooting, you're having minimal issues as possible, and there are ways to do so. First, you want to mount the DSLR onto the gimbal and keep all the weights on. Then you want to balance the weights little by little to stop the swing in the left and right direction. Then you want to balance the other swaying motion of forward and backwards by moving the mount forward and back to stop all possible swaying. After the balancing is good, the camera should stay level when you hold the handle, and it should not move around that much. Unfortunately, these particular stabilizer gimbals aren't perfect straight out of the box. You won't be able to perfectly use them right away, but you need to perfect the skill of holding them and stabilizing them. The way these gimbals work is that you use one hand to hold onto the handle, and because the handle part is connected to a flexible joint with this bearing right here, it's able to smoothen out all the shaky motions that your hand could possibly have. Even if you have the shakiest of hands, this flexible joint and bearing right here will balance it all out and make everything much smoother as shown right here. And with the other hand, you hold onto the shaft section. You can hold it here, you can hold it here, or you can hold it here depending on your style. And you just hold it to make sure it stays put so it doesn't sway around. And you can just adjust the midsection for those pan shots, as well as following shots, making it extremely smooth, and you also have that stabilization. Almost everything is great about this gimbal. The metal build is extremely durable and it's extremely simple to use, except for one thing, the handle grip right here. Although this grip looks amazing from far away, it's actually terrible. It's just plastic little spikes sticking out, and it just doesn't do well as a grip. Especially when your hands are sweaty, your hand will just slip off because the grip is just not that great. I think they should have used a foam grip instead of this plastic fake grip, because these spikes right here are simulating a good grip, but in the end it actually doesn't give that much grip, because foam, especially when it gets wet, when your hands get wet, it still stays on the foam. So for long periods of time, this grip is definitely not that great, and it's the only bad thing about this entire gimbal. Now I'm going to show you guys some test footage of holding a DSLR with steady hands versus using the gimbal. Mind you, I've only used this gimbal a few times and I still haven't perfected using it. And it definitely takes practice to get all your shots perfect with your workflow. Let's get right into it. Starting off, this is footage using just my bare hands. And as you can see, every step that I take, you can feel the bump, you can see the bump, and it just isn't that smooth and it's not satisfying to see. Here are also some example pan shots that are fairly common in outdoor footage, and bumps can be seen all over. This is inevitable when using just your bare hands, no matter how steady you are, but now switching over to the gimbal, you are immediately met with a more cinematic shot because you get the swing motion like in electronic image stabilization, and the bumps are pretty much completely gone. But now you have the issue of swaying from side to side because of the extremely smooth bearing, which is where the practice comes into play. You need to master holding the gimbal in order to keep your shots clean and steady, and it's definitely not an overnight thing. And with this footage, now you can compare whether or not you want to take a shot at using such a device to get better walking footage. Once again, I've only used it a few times, and I still have issues keeping it steady to my standards. That's been it for this Neewer gimbal. Hopefully this video answered a lot of questions that you had and gave you all the details that you needed to know about it. The biggest takeaway is that this gimbal is extremely easy to use, but to perfect it, you really need to take the time to perfect the skill of holding it and stabilizing it. I'd give this piece of tech a 7 out of 10 on the Romsicle. Not too tech heavy perhaps, but it's definitely really easy to use for anyone. But it does require a large amount of skill in order to work this piece of tech efficiently. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell to see notifications when a new video pops up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.